Hi, hello again, friends, and welcome into another edition of the Racing Angle. This one, episode 21 of season 1, titled Spring Stampede. I'm Logan Morris, or whatever's left of him. I'm your host for the evening. Great to be back doing another lovely Racing Angle. Before we get started, we would like to remind you don't be afraid to follow us on all of our socials, our Facebook, our X, our Instagram, our TikTok. Anywhere you can help us grow. And of course, if you've subscribed to the channel already, we greatly appreciate that. We appreciate all our subscribers and listeners and watchers and all of those things means more to us than you will ever know. I can guarantee you that. But again, I'm Logan Morris. Peyton Lower back there on the ones and twos. She DJ spin that ish. And so we will. We're going to break down Talladega. We're going to break down the NHRA 4 wides. We're going to break down the big news in NASCAR. We're going to just break everything down as best we can. Freddie tuning in. Yes, it was a wild weekend. It was. It was a Wild West show out there, man. We're going to talk about it. And so what do you say we get to it in this week's Race Week Rewind? All right, let's talk a little Talladega, baby. A little sweet home Talladega, if you will. No. All right, we have Talladega. We have a slew of first-time winners. First, let's talk about the Cup Series. We saw a moment this weekend, folks. Carson Hocevar got his first career win at his 91st career start. He was driving the 77 Spire Motorsports. He's already signed a long-term deal there. And look, you knew he was going to win eventually. He's too aggressive. He's too talented not to win. And his equipment is good enough. And so you knew he was going to win eventually. But I did not know it was going to be this soon. Did not know it was going to be Talladega. What a moment it was. He'd been creeping up all day long. And then as we got close, he became a real factor, a real player. And you break down the race and all those things, but the race is not what's important here. And that isn't to put down the great racing that was Talladega. We'll talk plenty about that. But we saw a real moment. First-time winners are an incredible thing, always. I'm almost never against a first-time winner. You got to be a particular breed of jerk for me to be like, well, I hope he never wins. Because first-time winners are good for the sport. And it just changes the flavor. This is no disrespect to the dominance of Tyler Reddick or the dominance that we've seen in past seasons of Denny Hamlin or Kyle Busch or Brad Kay once upon a time. But it is always nice when you have new winners. It sells itself, right? A new winner is always exciting. And so it's always Ty Gibbs winning a few weeks ago was great. It was great. I don't care if you like Ty Gibbs or don't like Ty Gibbs. It was fantastic. But we saw the true coming out party of a guy that could be a major player in this sport the next 20 years. I mean, those fans reacted to him it looked like Babe Ruth walking in the Yankee Stadium. It was absolutely, I don't want to overstate it, but it was pandemonium. The way that he reacted to them and the way that they reacted to him, you can see a special bond has already been formed between Carson Hocevar and many legions of the NASCAR fans. I've got friends that have been looking for a favorite driver for the last few years, and Carson Hocevar is their guy. And so he has a special connection with a lot of people. And for him to have that kind of crowning moment, that kind of coming out party at Talladega, and he's having a good, and let's not act like it's some big fluke win. He's been top 10 in points. He's been running consistent. He's been in the conversation. He almost won the Daytona 500. I know almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, but he was in the conversation. And so, but for him to finally kind of get that moment, because a lot of people have compared him to Dale Sr., right? Dale Earnhardt Sr. I don't know about all that. I think there's only one Dale Earnhardt Sr. There's ever only going to be one Dale Earnhardt Sr. And Carson Hocevar he should shut down those comparisons every chance he gets, because you don't want to be the next Dale Sr. You want to be the first Carson Hocevar. But it's great for him to see to win, and the connection that he has with the people and the genuine love that he has for this sport shined through. I mean, I don't care if you like his driving style or don't like his driving style. If you didn't get caught up kind of in that moment of him taking in the win, check your engine, give it some gas. Because it was, again, I have been critical of his driving style on this show, and I'll continue to be when I think it warrants it. But it was incredible to see him win, and to see him really bask in that glow, and to see him kind of realize just how much respect he's earned from much of the NASCAR fan base. We saw a true moment. Now, how far is that moment going to go? That's a great question. And that remains to be seen. Is this the first of many? I don't know. It's hard to predict that. Yeah, I don't think it's his last one, but I don't know. I don't know if he's winning. I don't know if he's winning as much as Chase Elliott or Ryan Blaney. I'm never going to assume that anyone's giving Denny Hamlin a run for the money. And so we'll see just how much it means. But I mean, what a magnificent moment! Kind of a star is born. I'm not trying to put down what he's done before. He's been a player in a lot of races the last few years for the 77, but this was the true, this is the true household moment where the casuals go, Carson Hocevar won a race. And you either were like, wow, didn't expect him to win, or you were like, who the hell is Carson Hocevar? And anytime you see a moment like that, which is rare, it's rare in NASCAR to see a moment like that. It's rare in sports to see a moment like that. There's a reason that people are as great as they are. They're as great as they are. LeBron James has been as great as he is for 22 years. Denny Hamlin continues to be a prolific winner. And it's rare to have these moments. And so incredible. And it's great for the fans, because if you've been looking for a driver, looking for someone else to root for, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I don't think he's going to dethrone Chase Elliott as the most popular driver. I don't. But he's somebody that if he continues this level of success, if he continues to win races, he could become another household name besides Chase Elliott. He could become the true breakout star of this era, because you can make an argument that Chase Elliott isn't. Yes, he is the most popular driver, but is he truly a household name? I don't know. That's a great question for a different podcast for a different time. Because Carson's got one thing in spades, right? Personality. He's got personality in spades. And so between that and his aggressive driving ability and his relatability in the way that he won, I've been sitting here for 10 minutes talking about it. But you want to know the best way to sum it up? The Lionel diecast site crashed multiple times that Sunday. If that doesn't tell you the connection he has with the fans, I don't know what to tell you, because that illustrates it better than we ever could. That illustrates it better than we ever could. The Lionel diecast site crashed multiple times. And when's the last time you heard of that? I don't know. Chase Elliott's not doing that. Kyle Larson's not doing that. Ryan Hill tuning in. How are you, Ryan? Always good to talk to you. Your boy's off to a rough start this year. For anyone that doesn't know, Ryan Hill is leader and CEO of the Joey Logano fan club most weeks, and and he's been with him pre-hair and post-hair, so it's not a new thing. But yeah, we saw a coming out party and a true Star is Born moment, and that is incredibly rare to see in sports, and it feels like it's even more rare to see in NASCAR. It just again, the Lionel diecast site crashed multiple times. Number one, diecasting ain't cheap, and a lot of people don't buy them like necessarily night of. Because keep in mind, you might get them at the tail end of this year, probably next. And so you're waiting a little while too. I mean, it's one of those things you go, damn, I forgot I had that ordered. It's been long enough. Other things to talk about at Talladega about. There was the huge crash that I don't know who got in a Bubba or what happened. It's, I know that Bubba's not everyone's cup of tea. I get it. He's a very polarizing name in NASCAR. He doesn't make a lot of dumb mistakes at super speedways, though. His super speedway prowess is well known, going back to his RPM days. Finished second in his first Daytona 500. So I don't know who got into who, but it led to one of the biggest crashes I have ever seen in my time watching the sport. Now, a lot of guys, and credit to the safety of this car, credit to the durability of this car, and credit to the hard work of a lot of crew members. Now, many cars were able to come on back, and we were able to still have about half our field. And you might say, well, that's not a big accomplishment, Logan. It is when the whole field, except about 4 cars, were wrecked. Ryan says you got to find some speed in those Ford. The only Ford that has any speed regularly is Ryan Blaney, and his pit crew says, hold my beverage because I'll take care of that right now. And so I don't know what's going on with the Fords. I'm really surprised. I thought they'd have a strong start because Chevy's got the new body. And so I don't know what's going on with the Ford. It's been the Toyota and Fringe show thus far. It's like Peyton Manning back in the Colts days. It's just been put a Toyota out there, and it's been every Toyota but Legacy Motor Club, unfortunately. It's been every Toyota but Legacy Motor Club. But anyway, back to the big calamity crash. I don't know that I've ever seen a crash that big take out that much of the field. We've all thought about that Cars moment, right? Where there's a huge crash and there's only 3 or 4 cars left, but we've never seen it. We've never seen it. That was, and this Talladega crash was as close as we've come to kind of seeing that the King and Chick Hicks and Lightning McQueen moment, because it was calamity. It looked like, number one, Talladega became a parking lot, and it looked like, that Tony Stewart crash at Dega, where he goes, we ought to do. I think we should just if we haven't crashed enough cars, we should just run the race backwards. Great sound bites from Smoke as always. Say what you want about him, but I'll tell you what, his post race interviews in any sport are worth the price of admission, aren't they? And so it was absolute calamity, an absolute parking lot. And again, credit to the car, and then credit to these crews working their butt off to get us back to about 21 cars in the field. And so it really begs the question, what happened and how do you avoid all that? I don't know. I wasn't thrilled about stage 1. Stage 1 was fuel save, and let's pretty much have the Jack Links Parade 500. My urgency about the fuel save issue dissipated as the race went on, because stage 2 was calamity with the crash, and Carson Hocevar wins in a really cool special moment for the sport. But this fuel saving problem is just, we got to do something about it. We have to do something about the fuel saving at super speedways in the Cup Series. It's just it's just not appetizing to watch at the tracks that are supposed to be most appetizing to watch. It is just not appeasing. It is just not. It's not worth watching. I watched stage one. I'm never going to tune out of any race unless I, for some reason, were to fall asleep. What just happened? It happens rarely, but it's happened. But most of these super speedways, it's not worth. This fuel safe stuff is not worth watching. We're playing half throttle at a place that is supposed to be. You're supposed to be the speed demon of all speed demons. And I'm sorry, I just don't quite understand that. I don't understand how we even got here. And when you're making the idea of going 180 miles per hour routine, boring, at the very least lackadaisical, something's wrong. Now again, did the rest of the race live up? Yes. Or else I'd have let off with the fuel saving issue. But the unpredictability of these races and the anything can happen is part of what sells you on Daytona and Talladega, and to a lesser extent now Atlanta. And everybody just riding around in a parade lap, I mean, for lack of a better term. You know, maybe that's what Stephen A. Smith has been watching. Maybe that's why he's doubled down on they're not athletes. You know, it's a pretty damn dumb take, because he goes, well, I can drive a car 100 miles per hour. Well, I can technically throw a football too. I can technically shoot a basketball. I can technically hit a baseball. Can't do any of those things well, but I can do it. I just personally, this fuel saving stuff, sometimes I'm okay with it, sometimes I'm not. And stage one for me was the breaking point of like, yeah, there's a clear issue here. We are running what feels like parade laps. Yes, they're going 180 miles per hour. I get it. But when you're going half throttle, it's Talladega and Daytona, especially at Talladega. The issue isn't as severe in Daytona, but neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. All right, elsewhere, Corey Day got it done in the NOPS, the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and again, kind of a coming out party weekend for NASCAR. You know, Corey Day getting it done, and you eventually start piecing it together. You go, is that Alex Bowman's replacement? Is it? I don't know. I think it's probably too soon to say. Probably too soon to say. Yeah, but pretty cool to see him have his kind of coming out party. Of course, Talladega breeds that, right? Talladega, Daytona, they breed the new winners, and that's all well and good. That's what it's all about. But you wonder if Corey Day has major success. Is he the guy is that what puts pressure on Alex Bowman? Alex Bowman said in his post-race interview he doesn't have any big hits left in him. You know, he finished top 5 for the first time since August this week at Talladega. But so you just wonder, does he know that his time is ticking? It's a fair question. It's a fair question. So, and then finally with the NHRA 4 wides, they were at Charlotte. They were at G-Max Dragway. And the 4 wides, a very, very controversial topic among drag racing fans. And I understand why, right? You in a lot of ways you get less action, but I thought this was a great 4 wide event. And it was a lot of fun to watch, and there was a lot happening. Doug Coletta won the top fuel category in what was a great final with it had Leah Pruitt and Tony Stewart and Sean Langdon, and that technically means that a husband and wife were in a Nitro final for the first time ever. Now, I know that some would say that's not really a final due to the four wides, and I'll hear you on that argument. Pretty historic, nonetheless. Big weekend for Tony Stewart as he bounced back, qualifying 12th going into race day, and then to make it to the final. And TSR continues to be strong. Leah Pruitt, and so, but Doug Coletta getting his 60th career Wally, and look, he's a silent assassin in many ways. He's pretty unassuming, isn't he? But when you get him in the wheel, behind the wheel of that Top Fuel car, that Top Fuel dragster, he becomes a different individual. Because if you talk to him, and I've had the pleasure of asking a few questions in media centers, you would just never know this is one of the greatest Top Fuel drivers to ever do it. He's so humble, always giving credit to his crew, Alan Johnson and others. He almost never takes a whole lot of credit for his success. And he said the Wally was going home to Connie's house. Connie wasn't at the track this week, but he'll be adding a Wally to the collection. And so, yeah, really, really cool stuff. Again, I know the four wides are a lot for some people to handle, and I get that. But I thought it had some great action. And then Ron Capps in Funny Car got his 79th career Wally, and had the great image of him celebrating with Monster and pouring Monster down the Wally like the Wally's drinking the Monster. And that's already his second win of the campaign. And you have to wonder, is Ron Capps right now the front runner? Is he staring down the barrel of his fourth Funny Car Championship? Now, it is way too soon to start making proclamations. It is way too soon to start making guarantees. It's way too soon to start making big predictions. But he is off to an incredible start after a couple of sluggish years by Ron Capps standards. And so that's been great to see. Austin Prock continued to struggle in Tasca Racing. He was 16th coming into race day and didn't have a whole lot of success. They will put it together. Austin Prock and that team will put it together. Now, when will that happen? I can't tell you, but it will happen this year. And they will likely win some Wallies. Yes, John Force and his incredible team deserve a lot of credit for Austin Prock's success. But make no mistake about it, Austin Prock and his family do as well. And Tasca will give them the resources they need, and they'll find the right combo, and they'll do some incredible things this year. I still firmly believe that. But no doubt it's been a bit of a titanic struggle by their standards to start the year. I think that's fair to say. Matt Hagan had more success, but was unable to kind of capitalize on the 1,000 funny car race momentum. But overall, another good weekend. Again, TSR off to a great start. Tony Stewart off to a great start over with Elite Motorsports. And so there's a lot to be happy about if you're Tony Stewart and company. And so Jasmine Salinas made her return to NHRA. She does some of the IHRA stuff as she continues to look for more full-time funding. She showed some strong qualifying runs. She had a rear end failure that took her out after round one in race day. But overall, not a weekend to shake your head at by any stretch of the imagination. In Pro Stock, Matt Hartford got it done for his second win of the campaign. And really, I know it's a second win, so this is going to sound a little crazy, a little low Ganity take for you. Anytime it's not Greg Anderson and Dallas Glenn right now, it's a surprise. That's no disrespect to the great people of Elite Motorsports like Erica Enders and all that, but we just know the run that Greg Anderson and Dallas Glenn and KB Titan have been on for about the last year, and they're really cooking right now. They're really cooking. And again, no disrespect to Eric Anders or Aaron Stanfield and many of the great Pro Stock competitors, but we just know the run the KB Titan has been on. And then finally in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera got his first win of 2026. And so, stop me if you've, heard Gage Herrera win before, because he was on a run there. He's cooled off a little, but he was on a run there that would make just about any of us blush, because the run he was on over the last few years, incredible stuff, no matter what category, no matter what. And so, I think he's going to have a big year. I think he's going to have a big year and kind of get back to form, quote unquote. Again, not that he ever would have lost it, but I think Gage Herrera is got to be right now your favorite for Pro Stock Motorcycle. I know that if Matt Smith heard that, he would disagree, but Matt Smith had a frustrating race day when he red lighted, and so he was kicking himself pretty good about that. Anywho, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk some hot lap headlines. There's been a major change in NASCAR, or has there been? We're going to talk about that. There's some Legacy Motor Club news to get to, and of course, we got to make our predictions for this weekend at Texas. But for now, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk all about that and so much more. Don't move a move. Hi, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Racing Angle. Cross flags in the air as we're halfway home on this edition of the Racing Angle. And if you've missed it, we've broke down Talladega. We broke down some of the four wides. But before we move on, I want to remind you, don't be afraid to follow us on our socials if you'd be so kind. Again, Facebook, X, and Instagram, TikTok. We're on pretty much everywhere the cool kids are, as they say. We like to think we're the coolest of the cool kids, but it's not a competition. Some of us just got it and some of us just don't. It's the way it is. So, but yes, follow us on all of our social media accounts, and you can get random thoughts from yours truly if you follow me on X. Here's a random thought. I think people that eat kale are wasting their time. That's a waste of a meal. That's a random thought for you. I think producer Peyton needs some kale in her time. So I just think eating kale is a waste of time. I like a little protein on the plate. You know what I'm saying? A little chicken, a little steak. But anywho, give us a follow on the socials and leave a comment and give us a like. And just, again, we want to grow the channel. We can only grow it as much as you allow us to. And we greatly appreciate all your support so far. With that, there is more news to get to. So what do you say we break it down and get to it? Let's talk some hot lap headlines. right, Hot Lap headlines, and that's where we break down the week's news. And the big news of the week, of course, is Jim France stepped down as NASCAR CEO, and Steve O'Donnell replaced him. And there was a bunch of different moves, and Ben Kennedy becoming COO, and all those sort of things. But the big news is Jim France stepping down as CEO, and Steve O'Donnell replacing him, meaning for the first time in NASCAR's now 78-year history, somebody that is not a direct member of the France family is your CEO. Now, on the surface, that is huge news. On the surface, that is huge news. No question about it. That is huge, big time news. But let's look at this a couple of different ways. As my dog exits the room, and that's the creak. Let's look at this a couple of different ways. Okay. He did step down as CEO. And for those that are wondering, why would he step down as CEO? This is obviously more lawsuit stink. This is obviously more NASCAR fallout. However, I don't know that this is as major as we're making it out to be, and here's why. He remains chairman of the board and of the NASCAR board, and he maintains his 54% stake in NASCAR Holdings, meaning he has the majority, meaning if a major change takes place, he's got to be the one to approve it. Now, the day-to-day operations, you could probably make an argument that guys like Steve O'Donnell and Steve Phelps were doing most of that anyway. Certainly Steve Phelps was. He was the public face of the company before the NASCAR drama and fallout of the lawsuit. And he took the proverbial bullet for the sport. But I don't know how much this changes. Everyone kind of got up in arms. He still maintains his ownership stake. He still maintains his voting majority. And again, on a day-to-day operations, how much was he really running anyway in terms of if it's big, just clear it with me? Because we didn't see him at the track all that often. We had seen it more in recent years, ever since he became CEO, replacing Brian France. But I mean, he was never the public face of NASCAR in any way, shape, fashion, or form. And I'm not trying to suggest that NASCAR is doing anything nefarious by making this happen. But there is just no doubt that companies do this a fair amount where, let's give it a facelift, make it look a little better because of bad PR. I personally, I'm not too shook up about the news. Originally, of course I was, right? You see it and you go, whoa, Jim France is stepping down? Somebody not named France is going to be CEO of NASCAR? This is history, and it is. But it might be much ado about nothing, in the words of old Bill Shakespeare, because he still maintains his ownership stake. He still maintains his majority voting rights. If a major change takes place, he is going to be at the forefront of approving or denying that. And I'm not upset at that. He is the son of Big Bill, and I'm not mad at that. I've said plainly on this show many times, I don't know if I believe you have a right to tell somebody how to run their business. If you don't like their sandbox, get out of the sandbox. That's my personal opinion. That's my personal belief. It's a private company. We're not publicly traded here. And so if you don't like their sandbox, well, that's tough noodles. That's the best way I can kind of put it. And so, I'm not trying to downplay how big this is. Yes, it's notable, but of the monumental moments this weekend, Carson Hocevar was way bigger. Now, if you told me Jim France is stepping down as chairman and CEO, okay, all right. Even then, I'd still have some wonder, because I go, well, does he still maintain his voting rights? And you might say, well, what makes you say that? Look, well, history makes me say that. You know, for you baseball fans, and maybe you're not a baseball fan, maybe you are. George Steinbrenner was banned from essentially taking part of the Yankee operations for the better part of 2 years. He had hired a private investigator to spy on a player he was having a dispute with, and he was banned by baseball for 2 years of having he owned them in pretty much name only, the Yankees, and was banned from dealing with any of the ownership day-to-day stuff. But guess what? 2 years later, Steinbrenner came on back and he ran the Yankees. And while most people say he did soften a little bit after that and change a little bit, he came back and was very much the public face of the Yankees. Now, I'm not suggesting Jim France is coming back or going to be CEO again. Remember, he wouldn't have been CEO in the first place if Brian France hadn't got himself in some pickles. I am saying that just because he's gone in a public sense does not mean he's gone in a private sense. Obviously, in my world, the most famous instance is Vince McMahon. He retired a few years ago and then forced his way back on with his voting power, and eventually would sell the WWE to what is now known as the TKO Group. He would, be forced out again eventually, and we most of us wonder or don't believe that he'll be back, but we all kind of wonder if it's possible because it's Vince McMahon. It's what he does. Point being is Jim France has still got to sign off on everything major. It is his voting stake. It is his company, for lack of a better term. Steve O'Donnell and Steve Phelps were given the State of the Sports address. Not Jim France. They were at most of the media sessions. Not Jim France. And I know that a lot of people say, based on the lawsuit, that he's not fit to lead and all those things. I don't know. Lawsuits are lawsuits, and what is said in court jargon is court jargon, and all those things. And so my point is like, before we're like, oh, it's a brand new day in NASCAR, pump those brakes. Wouldn't hit the gas on that take just yet. Also, another thing to factor in is the right guy even taking over if it's a brand new day in NASCAR. Steve O'Donnell is not universally loved. Tony Stewart certainly is not a Steve O'Donnell fan. He made that very clear at the Daytona presser for Colleague Racing. AJ Allmendinger said he hadn't spoken to Steve O'Donnell since he suspended him years ago. So I know that Tony Stewart is in NHRA and having great success in Top Fuel, but AJ Allmendinger is certainly a weekly stalwart of the sport, and yet he didn't have like great things to say. He didn't say anything negative, but it is odd that you haven't spoken to each other since he was suspended all those years ago. Not everybody is the biggest Steve O'Donnell guy. Is he the right guy to take it on? Personally, if we're trying to get rid of the stink of the lawsuit, shouldn't we not give the CEO job to somebody that was at the forefront of the lawsuit and those texts about, about Richard Childress or things of that nature? Now, I don't know. I can't recall offhand what text was his and what wasn't. But Steve O'Donnell has been in the sport and a major player in the sport for a long time. And I just don't know if you're going for, which I believe this is nothing more than a PR facelift, I think you give it to like Ben Kennedy. He is a direct member of the France family. He was not as directly involved in the cluster that was the charter negotiations and all of that. But again, maybe that's why Jim kind of picked Steve, right? Maybe because Jim has no intention of anything changing, and Jim knows that Steve will run everything major by him. I know. Put me with a tinfoil hat, but I I don't think this is the big news everybody thinks it is. This is a slight this is reshuffling the deck chairs. And I don't think it's the Titanic. I don't think anyone's going down. But I don't think it is the major shift that some suggest. That's just my take. So that is just one man's humble opinion. It's not so humble, but it is certainly my opinion. And so I don't think it's the major change everybody says it is. So that's just my thought. Just my thought. What say you? Leave a comment down below. We'd love to hear it. Is this a major shift? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. But just my take. All right, Legacy Motor Club news. Jimmy Johnson was on Stacking Pennies podcast. That's the Core of the Joy podcast. And he confirmed that Legacy Motor Club will run the 84 full-time next year with that third charter they're getting. And then he'll run the 13 in his one-off start with for his final career race. And look, I got to tell you, I'm disappointed by this. 84 is Jimmy Johnson's number in kind of the legacy folklore, right? In the legacy kayfabe, if you will. He's going to run 13 because he won his first race in his 13th start. Like I don't hate that. I don't think it's bad. I don't think, but the 44 is not ran full time, and that's certainly a Petty family number. And let's be honest, Legacy Motor Club is kind of an extension in many ways of Petty Enterprises. It's at least kind of the rising of the ashes form of it. And so I was hoping for a Petty related number. Now, I guess you can make an argument that the 84 is now a Petty related number, and it is. But again, given that that's been Jimmy's car in his number since he came out of his retirement in 2023, it feels a little odd to me that they're just going to shift that car number to whomever drives the third car for Legacy Motor Club. And if you were wondering what that Legacy announcement was at Talladega, it was an announcement. I'm not putting it down, but it wasn't nearly what anyone was thinking, because it was an extension, it was an expansion of the Dollar Tree partnership, and that's great for the team. And Jimmy's going to be a personal ambassador for Dollar Tree, and they're going to have a line of car related products and some other related products eventually that it's going to relate to all three Legacy drivers. And that's great, and that's awesome. And money is what makes the sport goes around. But I think they could have said Legacy Motor Club makes a Dollar Tree related announcement in the email for the press, right? In the Legacy Motor Club announcement, when they got a third charter coming and a third car coming, that kind of makes you think, it's a silly season dropper, but it was not, but still meaningful nonetheless. But yeah, I personally would have loved to see a Petty family legacy number. Like I said, the 44 comes to mind because it doesn't run full time. So one would assume that in NASCAR, a team with the charter would get the preference on car numbers. Obviously you could, there's also the 40. The 41 is Cole Custer, but that's a Petty related number too. But I guess 84 is going to kind of have to be slid into the Petty folklore, because that is what Jimmy says the third car will run full time next year. Again, he will run the 13 in what is scheduled to be his final career Cup start at the 2027 Daytona 500. 13 because he won his first race in his 13th career Cup start. And that's incredible when you think about it, right? I mean, we just had an incredible moment with Carson Hocevar, but it took him 91 starts. Not putting down Carson just tells you how good Jimmy was, right? And so that's pretty interesting to think about. And then finally, other legacy news, they're going to team with Aaron McLaren in IndyCar and have Ryan Hunter-Reay be the driver, and they're teaming up with Aaron McLaren for an Indy 500 entry. Now, we're seeing them expand. They've done some stuff with Tricon this year in the Truck Series, and now they're going to do this one-off, technically Indy 500 entry. I don't know how majorly involved they'll be. If this is Aaron McLaren with a Legacy Motor Club sticker, I don't know. I don't necessarily think the King is going to come hang out at the Indy 500 and do the double and then fly off to Charlotte with Jimmy. We'll see what happens, but obviously, as a Legacy guy, wishing them all the success in the world. And man, if they could win, I mean, think about how happy I'd be on this podcast if they could win the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 on the same day. I think I'd have to go get 100 wings or something and like eat them on this podcast. Matter of fact, that's what I'll do. If their cars win the Coke 600 and Legacy Motor Club wins the Indy 500 with this new entry, I will come up with some sort of gargantuan meal that I will eat throughout the next hour of the podcast following those races. That is what we'll do. I think that's a great idea, and then maybe we'll spend the night in the ER. We'll see what happens. But that would be what a celebratory day that would be for yours truly. But very fascinating in all seriousness to see Legacy Motor Club continue to expand. We know that Jimmy has big expansion plans in terms of he wants the team to be a lifestyle brand. He wants them to be a little bit everywhere. And so I think this is just, I think eventually, I don't think this is real soon, but I think eventually they will have a legitimate IndyCar entry for probably full time. I mean, I think you could see them in IndyCar. You could see them in F1. Obviously, it all depends on funding. I think they could expand to eventually have a truck and O'Reilly Auto Parts team because that's Jimmy's got big plans for Legacy Motor Club. I know that some people say he's going to get out of it in a couple of years, and maybe he will, maybe he won't. Who would have thought Chip Ganassi would have got out of NASCAR? You get the right offer, you'll consider anything. But I see Jimmy as long term in Legacy Motor Club. And again, could he get an offer he can't refuse? Could his life circumstances change? Certainly. But right now, on paper, you can tell, say what you want about his ability as an owner, say what you want about right now as his ability as a driver. But to me, it is clear he is all in with Legacy Motor Club all the way. And, that's wonderful. And probably a little overdue. But he went through some personal tragedies, and so he needed some time to handle that. But we'll see what happens with Legacy Motor Club and their expansion. But for now, it's an IndyCar entry, and and Darius Rucker involved and everything else. And the 84 in the Cup Series next year full time, going to be interesting to see. So with that, what do you say we keep moving right along? The O'Reilly Auto Parts series has announced a deal between the CW and ESPN. They'll be streamed on ESPN Unlimited, the O'Reilly Auto Parts series races, when the package goes live this summer. And I got to tell you, I love this because it is a pain in the keister to not have a streaming option because you don't always have time to sit down in front of the TV and watch the race. Sometimes you want to pull it up on the computer. I can speak for Peyton and I. Oftentimes we're watching multiple, especially on race weekends, we got multiple screens going on and we're watching a lot of races. And so it would be great if the CW had a streaming option, and that'll be great when that comes to pass this summer. Long overdue. And I know everyone goes, well, it's over the air cable. Again, with race weekend and motorsports, you're trying to watch multiple screens. All right. You need all the options you can get. And so I think this is great news for the sport. Continues to get the O'Reilly Auto Parts series in now even more homes. Because again, cable and over the air and antennas, it's a lot for it's great for the older generation, but we're not in that generation right now. And then finally, Ron Capps is running the IHRA race at Maple Grove in a bit of a surprising move, but we'll see how that all pans out. So there'll be some big money on the line for one Ron Capps. With that, we got to keep moving it along as we get close to the end of this one. Let's do some checkered thoughts. All right, our checkered thoughts come this week from Noah Gregson, who is struggling a little bit with front row. Here we go. We had a lot of speed last year in our cars, he said, and I'm not quite sure where the speed has gone, Gregson explained. It's just unbelievably frustrating when you get done with the race and it's like, I haven't gone 3 laps down at these tracks ever, and now the speed's just not there. I'm trying to work hard with my team and my group to get that back. There's only so much I can do. Now, why did I put this in here? Number one, I think it is clear at this point that Noah Gregson may have made – look, to some extent, you're a fool if you turn down a full-time Cup ride, and I get that. But he'd have been better off, in my estimation, when the controversy happened with him and the meme and when he was at Legacy Motor Club, to go to the Truck Series or the O'Reilly Series and go down there and get your confidence and kick some keister and make some noise and hit some gritties in the victory lane. That would have been the best call. He took the ride front row, and you make the choice you think is best at the time. But I just wonder because sometimes you take a step back and it works. We can have a great debate on if it's working for John Hunter right now. It certainly worked for Alex Bowman. And so I wonder about his long-term prospects, because it wasn't all that long ago that Noah Gregson was the top prospect this sport had to offer. He was throwing up after race wins and raising hell and again hitting the gritty. And now he is a complete face in the crowd, which is a shame because he's got personality for days. And I put this in for another reason. If there was some sort of conspiracy with the lawsuit, don't you think that front row would get some of that love? They were a part of it too. They won too. Front row's not getting any love. No, 23XI success is its year 6. They have Michael Jordan, and it's all gelling, and Tyler Reddick is a premier driver. So just a few things to think about. All right. I don't mean to rub it in. I don't mean to be a jerk about it. It's just think critically, people, because if they were going to rig anything, as people like to say, front row gets some of that love too, in my estimation. And right now, they ain't getting any, and Noah Gregson's not getting any. And frankly, it'd be good for the sport if he did, because again, he has tons and tons of personality in an era that has starred for that. All right, we got to bring it home, so let's go to our lap ahead. All right, the lap ahead. We got all 3 series of Texas. Everything's bigger, they say, in Texas. And so Friday looking a little dicey weather-wise. Last I looked, I think I looked early this morning. So the truck race is looking a little dicey. But we will run it eventually, whether that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it'll get ran. You want to pick for that race? Look, don't overthink it, folks. I looked at the entry list. Corey Heim is not on the entry list. Which suit I'd have went with if he's on it. But you know who is on the entry list? One Kyle Rowdy Busch. And as you know, in the truck series, he is still very, very capable of winning. So I'm going to take him. And in the O'Reilly race, Freddie's thinking the same thing I am. I'm thinking Kyle Larson gets it done. Absolutely. I just think that is absolutely one of those things. It's going to happen. Don't overthink it. And I think Kyle Larson is a great pick for Sunday, but he's not going to be my pick for Sunday. He isn't going to be my pick for Sunday. My pick for Sunday is one. I'm gonna go. It's Joey Logano won this race last year. I don't think Joey Logano is in winning form right now, but I do know somebody that is in the Ford camp, and that is Ryan Blaney, as long as he can avoid the pit crew struggles. And so I'm going to take Ryan Blaney this weekend, assuming his pit crew doesn't have him, losing a race on Kalshi or something. So that's my particular thought. That'll make producer Peyton happy. And with that, we can go ahead and we can get to our final lap. All right, another show has come and gone. This is the part of the show where you just say whatever you want. Number one, I want to thank Freddie for tuning in. Number two, I want to say if you heard a couple of minor dog yelps back there during the show this week, my dog Bailey, our dog Bailey, or as we call her, the Chief, is a senior dog these days, and while she does very well most of the time, she has aggravated a paw or a limb with some arthritis inflammation, and it is something we are treating and dealing with. And last night was a long night. She is much better today, but as you heard, she let out a couple of squawks because she made a wrong move. She'll be tip-top in a couple of days, I'm sure, because that's how it plays out every time. Those little arthritic joints getting her in her senior years. But mentally, she's as young as she's ever been. So in case you're like, well, what's going on back there? Are they being rough on the dog? No, she's just making wrong moves with what is likely an inflamed arthritic joint. And so want to address that. And I would, and if you're the praying type, I would appreciate any good prayers and good vibes sent our way for the dog. Again, she is not in horrible shape. She is not. We're not talking end of life or anything like that. But we would appreciate any prayers and good vibes for her as this latest flare up passes, and we can have and she can get back to her usual jumping self. She's made a lot of progress today, but it's still a couple of gimpy moments, as you heard. So, anywho, thank you all for tuning in so much. And again, we appreciate any thoughts, prayers, and good vibes sent to our beloved dog. She deserves a lot more than we do as people. I can promise you that. What a sweet, kind soul. And a special thank you to producer Peyton for coming over to the Loganity Lounge to help take care of our senior dog. As she needed her mommy, people. But anywho, I hope you enjoy the races this weekend. We've got Texas, all three series. We've got the NHRA at Georgia Motorsports Park with the Southern Nats, a new race on the schedule, so that's exciting. Lots and lots of good things coming up this weekend, and we'll break them all down next week. And I don't want to count any chickens before they hatch, but we have some pretty cool announcements coming up here in the next couple of days and weeks here at the Racing Angle, assuming everything goes to plan. And so stay tuned for that as well. Should be some cool interviews coming your way if everything pans out. Till next time, for producer Peyton, for my dog Bailey, and for anybody else that's listening, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.